Welcome back to Digital Commonwealth's 2020 conference. Thank you for joining us. Next up, we have the Digital Commonwealth Annual Repository Update with Eben English. Eben will be providing us with his annual update on the Digital Commonwealth Repository. Eben, the floor is yours.
Great, thanks, Sonia. Let me just share my screen here. So, welcome back, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for being here today. Thanks for coming back from lunch. It's great to be here. I really want to give a shout out to the conference committee for making this happen, and also big thanks to all the presenters this morning. It's been really great so far, and I'm really honored to be part of this event. So we're going to be looking at the 2020 Repository Systems Update. So if you are not familiar with Digital Commonwealth, I'm just going to be a quick overview. So again, we're a digital library of historical materials from Massachusetts institutions, archives, museums, libraries, pretty much any type of cultural heritage institution. The materials include photographs, manuscripts, maps, artwork, audiovisual materials, periodicals, newspapers, a real broad range of expression. We have two different types of content in our repository. So we have hosted materials where the actual digital files are hosted at the Boston Public Library, and the source files are available through digitalcommonwealth.org. We also have harvested content where we are harvesting metadata from other libraries around Massachusetts via OAI PMH, making those records available within Digital Commonwealth along with thumbnails. And then if you are looking at an item like that, to actually view the full object, you have to link back to the original institution. But by having those harvested materials, we're trying to create a true statewide digital library without the burden of having to rehost content in multiple places. So digitalcommonwealth.org has been around for a long time. It's been almost 14 years. We are a DPLA service hub. So again, the BPL provides digitization services, metadata assistance to institutions, and we host the materials here at the library. And we also funnel all those records to DPLA. So moving on. So the systems updates basically usually covers the year in review. So from the last conference until the present conference. So we're looking at a time frame of April 2019 and March 2020. So we're going to talk about collections that have been added, updates on some various projects related to the repository, talking about some new features that have been added, as well as work in progress that we're doing. And then looking at some of the usage trends, how those have changed over time and updated in the last year. And we'll end with the top 20 items, which is always a fun event where I can channel my inner Letterman. So looking at collections, we would not have any collections if it were not for the institutions that provide them to us. So this charting the growth of the number of contributing institutions to this site over the last 6 years. So our growth has been fairly steady the last 2-3 years. We've been able to add about 30 new contributing institutions in the past year. So we're able to maintain some good rate of growth here. And I think it's also worth noting the types of different institutions that we're getting. And so this is just a sample of some of the new contributors that we've brought online in the past year. And so we've got museums, we've got school libraries, we have historical societies, we have special projects like Boston TV News. So I think that speaks to the diversity and the richness of the collections that we're developing. In terms of actual collections, we've added almost 1,000 new collections in the past, or I'm sorry, about 100 new collections in the past year. That rate has dropped off just a little bit from previous years, but I think the rate of growth is still encouraging. And the new collections that we've added in the past year represent a really broad range of content, As you can see, just a few samples here. We've got maps, we've got artifacts, we've got memorabilia, artwork, photographs, all kinds of of great material of interest to history. Now, in terms of the number of total items, again, the growth rate is pretty steady the last 3-4 years. So we are now over 800,000 items and looking forward to closing in on a cool million. In terms of the split between harvested and hosted content, currently we have about 60% of the material is harvested and about 40% is hosted. And that proportion has pretty much remained steady over the last 3 years or so. So, you know, that's basically where we're at and where we've continued to be at. So we'll see how that goes in the future. In terms of harvests, some of the new harvests that we've done in the last year, the Boston TV News, like I mentioned before, the Paul Tsongas Digital Archives, the Southeast Asian Digital Archives, those have been great additions to the collection, as well as reharvests from a lot of our major contributors like American Archive of Public Broadcasting, Amherst College, Clark Art Institute, UMass Amherst, UMass Boston. UMass Boston is a really nice one because we got to harvest the Mass Memories Roadshow collection. So all those items are now available in Digital Commonwealth, which is great for local historical interest materials. Just a word about harvests. From some of the earlier conversations, you know, we welcome new harvests, and if you're interested in being harvested by Digital Commonwealth, you just need to get in touch with us. You can use the feedback form on the website to send us a message, and we'll get the ball rolling with that. And just to also clarify about our harvesting practice, we do some rectification and mapping of metadata, but in terms of subject headings or descriptions, abstracts, things like that, we don't modify what institutions are giving us. So we try and respect the metadata that the originating institution has created. The things that we map are more related to things like the type of resource or the genre. We try to map those to a standard set of categories like photographs, maps, manuscripts, etc., so we can help people find collections of similar materials. So moving on. In terms of hosted material, this is just a look at the number of files that we have in the repository. So this is just the master files. When we do an ingest, we create a lot of derivative files for access on the front end. But looking at the number of master files, this has continued to grow more or less the same rate over the past 3-4 years. And in terms of storage, we're up to about 37 terabytes worth of content. So we had a kind of a hiccup in terms of storage this past fall where we actually ran out. We used up all the drives that we had allotted for the repository at the Boston Public Library. And so we had to basically stop doing ingest for a little while we went through the procurement process and purchasing and obtaining and setting up and you know, reconfiguring the infrastructure to use that new storage. And so that's something that we're going to run into with our current infrastructure. We're hosting everything locally at the Boston Public Library. And so when we run out of that storage, it causes disruption. And the more content we have, unfortunately, the more difficult it's going to be to stay nimble and to do the migrations and upgrades and add on additional storage. So that's a model that we need to move away from. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute. So let's just do some other quick updates on some related projects. We do have a Zooniverse project called antislaverymanuscripts.org. This is a crowdsourced transcription of letters from BPL's anti-slavery collection. If you are at home and you find yourself not having much work to do from home, this is a great way to get involved. There are tons of materials to transcribe there. And the transcription work will eventually support full text search and with hit highlighting for these important collections, which are all handwritten. We also released in the fall a piece of software called NewspaperWorks. This is a collaboration between Boston Public Library and University of Utah. It's basically a newspaper content management functionality for the Samvera Hierarchs repository framework, which is an open source digital repository system. So this software supports batch ingest with OCR and Alto, supports article level description, full text searching, browsing by title and date, keyword highlighting, deep zooming, lots of exciting features there. And that's now available through GitHub. And we're hard at work right now on the 3.0 version of Digital Commonwealth. This is actually a recent photo of me and my colleague Ben, hard at work, bringing things online. So the new system, we're moving away from the Fedora Commons model of XML-based metadata and objects management to a more relational database structure. We're moving to cloud storage, which will basically solve that storage problem, and that will basically have infinitely scalable storage, which is important because we have some really big collections of newspapers, video that we're hoping to do in the near future, as well as books from the Internet Archive. We're moving to an API-driven microservices framework where the different components of the application, from the forms that administrators use to the metadata storage to the derivative processing, image service to the front end, all those things are basically more efficiently containerized. And so we have more pieces, but each piece has fewer responsibilities, which will allow us to be a little bit more nimble in the future. And of course, all this is open source, and everything will be available on our GitHub repository. So let's talk about some new features that we've added in the past year. And this section is a little bit thinner than normal, and I apologize for that. But we, again, have been focusing most of our efforts on developing the new DC3 system. So, but we do have some interesting stuff that we've added recently, which is the ability to facet by the availability to reuse items. So in the interest of giving people better access to public domain items or items that have Creative Commons licenses that can be used in scholarship or research or presentations, class projects, or whatever, we now have the ability to facet by those access availability designations. So that is now available on the search results page. You can use that. And we have also added our first hosted video. We added a video from the Boston Public Library's WHDH collection, which was a local, TV station that we've obtained a lot of their archival footage. And so we are going to be getting a lot of that content digitized now. That's ongoing, but we wanted to do kind of a proof of concept hosted video. So we posted this one right before MLK Day in January, but basically we're excited about the ability to host video within the repository, which we haven't been doing up to this point. All the video content has been harvested from partners like WGBH, Boston TV News, American Archive of Public Broadcasting. So that's pretty exciting stuff. And again, if you're interested in a feature, if there's something that you really want Digital Commonwealth to have or do, or you can always contact us, and you can just go to our feedback form and click on the site feature suggestion, and we're happy to get further engagement on feature requests and things like that. So let's look at a little bit how people are using the site, how they use the site this year, and how it differs from previous years. This is actually kind of interesting in terms of the number of sessions, average number of sessions per day. We actually declined a little bit in the past year, which is something that we've not seen before. But we did have a pretty huge jump in sessions last year. So if you look at the overall trend of the curve, we're still going in the right direction, but this is the first time that our usage hasn't increased. Or it has increased and it hasn't. It depends on your perspective. So in terms of item views, we have about 1.7 million item views, which was up a little bit from last year. So how do we get more item views when we have fewer sessions? Well, people are looking at more pages in each session. So our numbers in terms of pages per session are up from last year. But looking at the long-term trend on this data, it really hasn't changed a whole lot. It's about 5.5 pages per session in terms of how many pages people are looking at when they're using Digital Commonwealth. In terms of the types of devices people are accessing the site with, this is another interesting trend. So this is the first year that desktop usage has not declined. So desktop usage remains steady the past year, while we saw mobile usage continue to increase, and tablet usage actually dropped a little bit. So kind of an interesting trend. We'll have to see where that goes in the future. In terms of traffic sources, this is again is a little different. We actually saw our traffic from search engines decline just a little bit this year. But as you can see, we do get the vast majority of our traffic from search engines like Google. And the other sources in terms of direct access or referral from other sites, social media, not changing a whole lot. There's some minor trends there, but nothing that we can really draw major conclusions from. So we'll have to see how that search numbers fare in the future. In terms of referrals, these are the top referring sites and the number of sessions that were referred from each site. So, again, seeing libraries like bpl.org, DPLA, those are some pretty obvious refers. There's also some interesting other blogs and content sites. The thing that I'm really excited about in this list is Wikipedia. That hasn't been on our top 10 referring sites in the past, and so I'm excited to see that usage growing. And as Michael mentioned earlier in his presentation, we are going to be trying to work with DPLA to get more content from Digital Commonwealth into Wikimedia Commons and into Wikipedia articles, and trying to drive traffic through that. So hopefully we'll see that number grow. Looking at social media referrals, you can see Facebook is the real leader here, and our Facebook referrals have really grown a lot over each year, the past 3 years. The other major sites, social media sites, Reddit has continued to decline. Pinterest is continuing to grow. Twitter actually went way down this year, which was a little surprising, but kind of gives you an idea of where people are accessing the content from. This is another stat that I've been kind of more interested in lately, is the number of searches. So the people using the site search functionality on Digital Commonwealth. We had a record number of searches this year, continuing to grow, which is great. We want to see people engaging with the content more, and site search is a great indicator of that. But in terms of the number of sessions that include a search, that is actually at its highest it's been in the past 4 years, but not a huge difference over the past few years. Again, we have 10-11% of people conducting a search, which means we have 89% of people are not using this site search. So we'd like to see engagement with that get a little bit better, a little bit higher. And I also like to include this in terms of usage. This is the number of facet clicks in the past year for each type of metadata category that we provide facets for in the search results. So you can see its subjects and location are by far the most clicked on metadata facets. So that kind of speaks to the importance of description in those areas, good subject headings, and precise geolocation tagging of content is very useful for people when they're trying to narrow down their search results and find what they're looking for in the collections. And that is just going to continue to grow as we add more and more material, and the haystack just gets bigger and bigger. Okay, so we are running out of time here. Let's see how I'm doing. So let's get to the most viewed items. So we're going to look at the top 20 items for this is in the past year, April last year to March. And the numbers are measured in unique page views. And as a little added feature this year, I'm including the change from the previous year if the item was available for a full year previously. So some of the items were not even ingested last year, so I can't include that data. But here we go. So at number 20, we have New England topography from the Harvard Forest Archives Martha's Vineyard collection. That's up a little bit from last year. Number 19, Mills at Night in Lawrence, Massachusetts from Lawrence History Center. Number 18, Butterflies from the BPL's MC Escher collection. You can see the numbers on this one are way down. The Escher collection last year got a huge boost from a Gizmodo article feed that linked to the collection. So those numbers were really super high last year. So we're kind of thinking this year they might be going back to what their normal usage might actually be. We'll have to kind of keep an eye on that in the future. Number 17 is unfortunately a bit of a bummer. This is the KKK application form from University of Massachusetts Amherst Libraries, the W.E.B. Du Bois papers. And this is actually up a little bit from last year. I'll talk a little bit more about that at the end of this, but let's keep going for the moment. Number 16, Rats Leaving a Falling House from the Social and Political Cartoons collection at BPL. And that's up a little bit. Number 15, Southern Chivalry, Social and Political Cartoons again. Number 14, JFK and Jackie Admire Painting of Spirit of 76 in Marblehead. This is a new collection this year, so we don't have the numbers to compare from last year, but lots of JFK and Digital Commonwealth if you're interested in the Kennedys. We've got tons of great photographs from the 60s or 50s and 60s of JFK. Number 13, Our National Bird as it appeared when handed to James Buchanan. Again, social and political cartoons is a perennial favorite. We get a lot of usage in that collection. Number 12, the Peters World Map. This is an interesting item because it's kind of like a map that's an anti-Mercator projection map. So the Mercator projection emphasized European countries and the Northern Hemisphere. The Peters map is sort of attempting to rectify that projection and give a more accurate portrayal of the relative size of the Southern Hemisphere continents, South America and Africa. Number 11, Bond of Union from the Escher collection. Number 10, Balcony from the Escher collection. Excuse me. Number 9, Middleton's Pioneer Map of the World as the Plain and Immovable. You might be looking at this and wondering what's so interesting about this map that it's so popular? Well, it's a flat Earth map. And I think that is one of the reasons why it's getting so much traffic. Certainly not necessarily the most visually engaging map we have in our collection by any means. Number 8, Belvedere from the Escher collection. Number 7, Central Square Station from the Cambridge Photomorgue collection. Number 6, Panorama of the Parker Estate from the Lancaster, Massachusetts Historical Image Collection. Number 5 is Ant from Escher again. And number 4, Ascending and Descending from the Escher collection. And in the top 3 spots, number 3, Row of Naked Boys Stand on Diving Board at Indoor Pool. This is perennially, again, in our top 10. I'm not going to show this. This is one occasion where I think we do actually a decent job of providing some content warning and context around the object. So if you try and view this item on Digital Commonwealth, you do get a warning that you have to click through. And so I'm just going to show that here, and I'm not going to show the image. And number 2 is the other image that we have of naked boys standing on a diving board at an indoor pool. And number 1, and still champion, our annual top item is the Gleason's New Standard Map of the World. Again, this is another flat Earth map that, if you've been paying attention to the number of views as I've been going along, you can see there's a huge discrepancy between number 1 here at 18,000 views and number 2. This is by far our most popular item. But the usage is actually declining, and it's continued to decline over the past few years, which I think is encouraging. You know, it's tough to see this kind of stuff in the top 10. And when I put it together, this list, you know, every year I'm hopeful, like maybe this is the year that something else has come along to displace some of these materials. You know, we don't necessarily know why people are using this. You know, there's lots of different explanations. You know, we can take some guesses. We can look at where the traffic is coming from and try and get a better idea. But I think that it really, again, just speaks to the need for context around these items that we've talked about so much already today. And you know, these items are espousing values or messages or you know, themes, conspiracy theories, you know, white supremacy. These are things that don't match our values, and we need to be clear about that. But you know, again, we do have an obligation to maintain the historical record. But again, it just really emphasizes the need for the types of conversations that we're having today around providing context, but also for action in terms of you know, doing a better job of giving users the tools they need to understand what these items are, what their intention is, and why they exist in our collections. So I think I may be out of time, but if you have questions, I would be happy, please post them in the Q&A. I'll be happy to look at them as the conference goes on and can answer those in the chat. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Eben. Yes, we are out of time.